So in this lesson, moving forward, I'm going to demonstrate how to insert radio buttons and create them. In fact, a couple of ways we can do this and various designs that we can use to embed radio buttons on the canvas, which is an important part and element of the GUI programming. So a radio button, which is also sometimes referred to as an option button, is simply a graphical user interface element of the tkinter, which allows the user to choose exactly one of the predefined set of options. So just like you click on a button to select an option. So radio buttons can contain both text or images, and the buttons can only display text in a single font. The function or the Python function or method that can be associated with a radio button. So you can associate any function or a method. And this function or method will be called if you press the radio button. So whatever happens once you select or click on the option button, this function will be called by Python. And each group of radio buttons, for instance, has to be associated with the same variable name. So pushing a button changes the value of the variable to a predefined certain value. So let's go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate how to create our radio buttons on our canvas. So let's begin. So let's do from tkinter import, and let me go ahead and save this so we know. We're going to call it radio.py. Define our root equals tk, and the variable v, for instance, give it a name, and then use the set method to 1. And what this would do is simply initialize the choice, right? So in other words, Python, for instance. So this is simply to initialize our first choice. And then of course our languages, for instance, so whichever list you want to create, whichever radio buttons you want to create will go in this list. So I'm going to create a radio button that contains different programming languages. So it's going to be languages equals, and then I begin my list. And here my first choice within the list will be Python, and I'm going to refer this to as 1. And then my next language would be, let's say, Perl scripting, or just Perl is fine, it's the name of the language. And then this will be the second, and third will be, let's say, C++. This will be at number 3, and fourth will be Java. It's a wonderful programming language, by the way, and this will be at number 4. And let's do one more within our list. How about PHP? Another great language to learn. So this will be our 5th and let's say the final one on the list. Parentheses. All right, great. Once we have our list, next we are going to do the definition and just display or show choice, and simply do a print. I'm going to use the get method within my print, and next create some labels. So label will be for the root, and the text in this instance would be, now I could type any text obviously for this label, but I'm going to use multi-line. So I can say choose your favorite programming language, colon, and then give it some settings such as justify it to the left, and then give it some padding also. So just do pad x equals 20, and then use the .pack. Great. So once we have our label, I'm going to do the for loop, right? So it's going to loop and look for the next radio button or the next choice and display that as well. So let's go ahead and do a for text txt and the value in languages, and my radio button root, comma, and this will be text equals txt, comma, and next I'm going to add these two after typing in the whole code, and then type them without comments, right? So you can do it here or you can do it later on as well. So in fact, let me add some comment here so we can see. So I'm going to say add these two after typing in the whole code. Now, that's optional. Again, you can do it later on or you can do it right now as well. So next I'm going to say indicate equals 0, and then the width equals 20, pad x equals 20, and variable equals v, and my command equals show choice. Get rid of the extra line here, and finally close the main loop. Great. So let's save this, run it. It takes a couple of seconds sometimes in Python. And let's check our line 35 or the EOF while parsing. Let's check our loop is closed properly. So we got our radio buttons, we got the width, so we got our widths, padding, variable v's, and the command, and of course we forgot the value equals val, and then we need to pack it also with our anchor, otherwise it's not going to close. We're going to specify the location. All right, now our main loop is going to be closed, so save it, run it, and let's fix up our line 25 and make sure our language is correct on line 8, and we're doing the for loop in languages. All right, let's take a look. So let's scroll up here. I want to check one more thing here, our list. So language equals this, which is fine. I have my list, and of course the set of parentheses goes after 5. Great. So now we have our list complete, and this should work. So let me save it and run it. And great, we have our nice box here that shows our radio buttons. Let me move this aside here so you can see. So here's our text, choose your favorite programming language, and our first Python button is selected. And then we have our Perl language, our C++, Java, and PHP. And notice as I click on each one of them, Python displays the output as the radio button 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, this is not really a radio button, and let me demonstrate why. It's because if I go into the code and simply text these two lines out, which were the point that whether you want to use it now or later. So if you do not have these two lines and just do the text and then the padding, and let's run the code again. Notice in this instance, we are going to have our radio buttons. So the indicate tron and the width would specify and change the look and feel of these buttons. So here once again is Python, Perl, C++, Java, and PHP. So this way you can create radio buttons on the canvas, and by using these two options you can change them to be radio buttons as well. So a couple of ways you can work with creating the radio buttons on your canvas. So practice with this, and let's move to our next lesson.